Hello, and welcome to another episode. Today we're going to cover Warp AI, and we're going to go from an idea all the way to implementation really quickly. So I'm going to show you the power of this. So what you're looking at here is the actual UI that was generated by Warp. We're going to get here, and I'll show you how in just a few minutes. But you can see it's got a very modern UI, very modern feel. And I'm not a UX guy, so to have something that went out there as a UX expert and actually assemble this was pretty amazing. So if we look through the rest of the video, you're going to see that I had very little input into what it designed. It only took a few little prompts and it was able to generate all of this. So through the power of agentic programming and prompt engineering, we can do a lot of things with very little effort. And as you can see, it does a great job of putting it all together, and I look forward to showing it to you. So here's the prompt that I started with. Previously, I had actually done a more complete, more detailed prompt entry, and it really made it difficult to try and get it functioning out of the box. So I scaled back, went with a more simple prompt that really gave the AI a little more freedom. So what you see here is that I just specified creating a UI application using React. So I gave it specific commands on what to use and where. And then what I wanted the application to do, the virtual garage piece. So I just wanted it to generate a virtual garage that using React that could provide a more modern feel. And I left a lot of that up to the AI to interpret and create a plan for it. And as you can see, I specifically told it to create a plan, but in many cases it does this automatically and lays it out in a nice, readable way. Here you can see that it went ahead and laid out the tasks that it was going to do, which actually also were simplified based on my prompting. It allows you to then review those plans and determine that it's going to do the right thing. So here, as it starts building out, you can see that it does a lot of different tasks. It starts installing all the dependencies. It does a lot for you. It's really impressive how much this will actually do. While it was building it, once it finished up, I was able to hit the local host. And as you can see, there was an actual error. That little X by the npm run dev, that actually tells you that something didn't work and that process was stopped. So here we can see that it ran through this multiple times. And while it iterates, it learns from it, fixes, and tries to restart it again. Once it completes that task, it provides you another prompt at the end to say, here, try this location. Great layout, worked really well. And then it summarizes everything for you. So you get a nice write-up. This could be added to a README, put on a doc. But once you have that endpoint, this is what it generated and created for me at the very end. So it's pretty cool that you got this kind of new, kind of flashy UI. It created all the tiles for the different vehicles. It didn't have a lot of input, so it made a lot of assumptions, which is great. But as you can see, like most of the components and stuff like that don't actually work yet. I haven't tied anything together, but it's a great starting point and a nice UI to get moving forward with. It did a lot of work very quickly. As a reminder, this only took several minutes to generate, so we got a long ways in just a few minutes. Let's go ahead and get it committed so that we don't lose track of what we've gotten done up to this point. So here you can see the prompt that I'm just asking it to initialize the Git and commit it. And what it did is it actually went out, did the init, did the add, made a commit statement, and then checked for status on that. And as you can see, the commit statement actually generated a description for me, which is probably a lot better than anything I've ever written. But the nice thing is when you do things like this, even when you're just doing a small section of the code, the commit description is usually a lot better laid out, and it goes through exactly what it changed. So it's usually does a really good job of doing that. The other piece to this is you get a summary out of this. It just kind of tells you what was done, as you can see here, and then it gives you the layout of the project itself. Now, it's one thing to set up a UI that looks pretty and all of that good stuff.
So another thing when you have to set up a backend server, because most of the time when you're building an application, you're not just building a UI that's all encompassing, that does all the database connections and everything like that. You really don't want to design that way. The way you want to design is you got a front end and technically a back end of some sort, either through that implements security, has REST endpoints for access, uses things like queuing, topics, eventing, storage to a database, all of those things. So with that, let's go ahead and build a back end that would kind of mimic some of those functionalities and see just how good Warp AI is at developing this for you.
This provides you the capability to do a lot of that very quickly. So it's a fail fast kind of scenario. And the beautiful part about it is that once you're in here, you can kind of use some of your terminal commands to navigate and look around and do what needs to be done. So here in this case, I want to look at my backend services. So I go back into my backend directory, make sure that that's where I'm at. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually remove everything that's in there so that I can demonstrate how much work it can do for you. So at this point, I'm just going to ask it to delete everything. Let me verify. Everything's gone. Perfect. Great. So now let's go ahead and create the prompt. I'm going to ask it to generate a backend services layer using Camel, Kafka, Postgres, and any other Java open source framework that it would find useful within this scenario. So I'm giving it a lot of freedom. The other part that I want to point out here is that I'm also telling it to look at the UI project module to determine how to best write the APIs based on the needs of the UI. So it's going to do a lot of work automatically by just referencing the UI project and then building off of that. It generated a task list, so you can see that it's going to initialize a Spring Boot project. There's a lot of setup from the Camel routing, Kafka, making sure all of the project dependencies are in place. It's going to do some testing and validating. It's going to create the API controllers. There's a lot of work that's about to happen here. I'm going to assume that this will take a little while, but we'll go ahead and skip the long, boring parts as much as possible. But at some points, I actually find it kind of intriguing to watch how much work it's doing and watch it go through and tell me every part that it's hitting and what it's generating. It's actually pretty interesting. And as it's going through this, you'll actually notice that we can open up an Explorer window. And it'll open at the level of your prompt. So wherever I was at when I started the command is where it's going to give me at the top. So I was in the virtual garage. I can go in now and look at the back end and see all of the files that it's actually generating. So as we go further down in the directory structure, you can see all the different packages that it's at this point created. So you can go through, you can see that it's created a Camel directory or package, controller, DTO, entity. So it's breaking things out into different packages pretty well. So now, if we take a look at where it's at, it's actually generating the Camel routes now. So it's going through and it's setting up all the Kafka configurations, database configurations, and then assembling them into a specific Camel route. And now that everything's set up, and you just kind of saw that go past the screen very, very quickly, the idea here is like, I also want to set up a local development environment or a runnable environment utilizing Docker containers and Docker Compose. In this case, I'm actually specifying directly, I wanted to use a Tomcat instance for running my application, as well as instantiating the REST points, Kafka, PostgreSDB, and I expect it to go ahead and actually generate all of those different containers based on the best practices for Docker initialization. So it's utilizing Docker Compose to set these up. So it created the Docker Compose YAML file for me, and now I'm asking it to start the Docker container. Obviously, to do that, it has to pull in any requirements and then also download, in this case, it's the CLI. It's going to find that I already have it, but for some reason it wanted to look for it first. And now you can see it's actually assembling and starting up all those different containers, which is great. I mean, I literally only gave it a few commands and it's able to figure this out. It did run into an issue. So when it does this, it actually asks me if I want to apply the change. And it'll do this for any process that it's going through. You can avoid a lot of this, especially if it has a lot of different edits that it's making, by just auto committing or allowing it to just make the decision on its own and continue on. But in this case, it's asking me to apply the change. I don't have that turned on, so yes, I'll go ahead and apply the change, and that will allow us to then continue on with the process. Trying to start these up, there was an exception occurred, and it recognized it, and it's showing me what it fixed. So I was able to go through and figure all that out. So now that we've gone ahead and done that, like I mentioned before, it's good to commit your work. It was getting it functioning, got the Docker component set up, so I wanted it to go ahead and commit that, all the Docker Compose files. Now what I wanted to do is go ahead and generate a curl command and actually test the endpoints. I want to see what it's going to do from a testing perspective. And as it goes through this process, I can see that it's starting up the endpoint, validating that endpoint, and it's actually generating an SH file, a script file specifically for this. So when I open that, you can see that it's actually generated quite a significant test for me. It didn't just give me the curl commands, it actually generated a test script that will allow me to run this and actually create a bunch of validation tests, which is outstanding. So with that in mind, we can also have this process run them. And from the output, you can see that there were some issues found in one of the tests. It's actually rerunning some of the curl scripts to determine what some of the issues might have been. So it does this automatically for me. I don't have to go in there and tell it to do any of this. It just is going through as though it was a tester. And you can see that it's executing each one of the curl commands. And then when it's done, it's actually giving me a full test result, which you can now store off in a wiki or save. So the next progression of this is let's go ahead and start up everything. Let's get it running. So I want to see the UI. I want to take a look at the UI and see what it looks like. So let me go ahead and get that started. I can do that directly in the console again by just asking it to start the UI server. And now that it's there, I can go ahead and hit the endpoint. And here's our starting screen, right? So again, there's not a lot of functionality here. This is just the kind of a landing page. You can take a look at some of the buttons, see if it works. Okay, so I can get in and enter into my garage. And now you've got your basic layout, right? So here we can see that I've got a login prompt. If I hit that, it takes me back out. So there's some functionality in here. Some of these endpoints don't do much. We'd have to hook that up. Again, I can get into my garage. My vehicles don't work. Analytics isn't there. None of the settings work. And I can't click into any of the tiles, which are all things that I want to fix. But here I can filter through some of the different vehicles based on type. So there's some basic functionality here. But the idea is I want to now not just have this kind of in a mock state. I want it to go out and actually hit my database. So now what I'm going to do is actually wire up the APIs so that it will go out and pull from the database for these different components, which is the starting point to being able to persist and store all of this data. Okay, went ahead and stopped my server. Now that we have the UI and the backend at least tested and functional, I want to try and tie these together. I'm not going to try and do too much all at once. So let me go ahead and let's just make sure that we have everything checked in, because there are times when you do this kind of stuff. If it starts changing a lot of things for some reason, it can easily break stuff. So I want a good solid base to be able to revert to. And while it's setting all this up, it's kind of nice to be able to have that security of the fallback. So first thing I want to do is go ahead and put in the prompt for connecting up the UI to the back end. In this process, I want it to update all of the UI components to actually utilize the backend APIs. And so this process took quite a bit of time, so I just went ahead and skipped over a lot of it. You don't need to watch it do its work. If you want to be wowed by that, jump in and watch it do it. It's pretty fun. But at this point, I'm out. I can start up the UI. I'm looking at it so I can see my vehicle still doesn't do anything. Can add a vehicle. Okay, so it did do this. I saw it come up through as it was going through the logging. And it did add this new vehicle dialog. So I'm going to put in truck, select a type. I guess at this point I'm going to probably end up with classic. I don't see truck in here, so I'm going to guess classical we'll do. So we'll also do a Chevy, Model C10. Let's do 1979. Yeah. Burnt orange. Just throw in 100,000. And I don't know, value's like 15, sure. Excellent. Probably more like a fair condition, since I don't think the steering is all that great on it, but I don't have an image of it that I could upload right now, so I don't even know if that would work. But add a description. This truck is work in progress, definitely. And there it was. Cool. So it added it to the top of the list. And it picked a Mustang, but hey, beggars can't be choosers at this point. But yeah, so pretty cool. Again, not a whole lot of time. I mean, most of the processing time was spent just going through different scenarios and building out the plans and all that. So I can still log out, go back into the garage, and my truck is still there. Try this button. Yeah, everything's still functioning. So excellent. I guess at this point, let's go out and check the database and ensure that the data is making it where we think it should. So here we got data grip. We're connected to our virtual garage in Postgres. Under vehicles, we can see the columns that it's created and generated. So good. I want to go ahead and query the console, and let's just see what's in there right now and verify that the data is actually being pulled from the database, indicating that it's been all wired up. So in this case, we can see that there are 9 vehicles in here, and I can see the truck and truck 2 were added. So I think that's a safe indicator that we have, at this point, hit the back end and actually stored the vehicles that we've added. So it's wired everything up. That is outstanding. I only wish my garage actually looked like this. So at this point, let's go ahead and just add one more just to verify so we can see it in real time. So we saw the database beforehand. Now I'm going to add an awesome new truck. Do classic Chevy again, just because. Let's do Ford. Let's do Ford. I'm going to say F100 probably. Yeah, F100. I don't even know if there's an F100 1969, but oh well, it is what it is. Let's see, what's a good color? Green for Green Bay Packers. Green and yellow. There we go. And 100,000 miles. Well, we'll say that it's a little more expensive than the Chevy. Why not? We're in good condition. Let's just add the vehicle. We don't have to be too fancy here. Let's just go ahead and add it. Now, there it is in here. I think one of the newer episodes we'll go ahead and make sure that it's adding the images too. But here we go. Let's refresh. There's my truck at the bottom. Perfect. Excellent. So it wired it all up.
Amazing, isn't it? How quickly it did some of this. To give you context, it took about an hour for all of this to come together. We started off with the UI, then we did the back end, then we wired it all together. And each component or each module in there had its own set of complications, right? From the standpoint of trying to get the back-end services to start up with all of the Docker containers, it needed Kafka, it needed Zookeeper, it needed Postgres. All of those things were set up automatically. I did almost nothing. The other piece to that is the ability to seed the data to give us some samples so that you had something to look at from the UI. Setting up the tiles, doing kind of like a new UI experience that provides a more modern feel. So what Warp AI brings to the table is a fail fast mentality. Does it solve or take away the ability for the need of a developer? By no means. Developers are absolutely needed here in order to see what it needs to do, to give it direction. It's not going to be replacing a developer right now. But I wouldn't be surprised if the way our our environments change is going to be shifted, right? We're going to become more prompt engineers than developers. But with that in mind, there's a lot of power here. I have a feeling this is going to make developers that much more efficient, and we're going to be able to produce so much more in so little time. I look forward to seeing what we do with these types of tools, and I really look forward to seeing you on the next video. And like and subscribe.